We got Chronos, who we know is time. Okay? You know his wife's name? Rhea. You know what that means? Space. Time and space. The physical, the material. Okay? Time and space, the physical and the material. Now here's their 5 children that he ate. Hestia. Hestia was eaten, and Hestia means that which is the negative earth. It's the physical. It's the body. It's the earth. It's the physical. It's the things that you have to deal with all the time, you know, the physical aspects of life. Where do you see the second child's name? Hades. Yeah. Remember? You know what it means? Desire. The mind. You call it hell. It's hot as Hades. Where'd it come from? Did anybody ever tell you Hades was the second child of Saturn and Cronus? In other words, it is an offspring of time and space. It is an offspring of that which is the physical, the desire of the mind. The third child was called Demeter. D-E-M-E-T-E-R. And Demeter means that which is the lower mind, but it can produce spirit, okay? It's the lower mind, which can be open to spirit. The next child was called Hera, H-E-R-A, which means the higher mind. It means that which is the divine aspect of spirit within you. That child was consumed. That is wisdom. You see, wisdom is feminine. Lower wisdom, higher wisdom, it's always feminine. Just go with me real quick to page 540, I think it's 542 in your Bible. Happy is the man that finds wisdom. Do you see that? Now go down to verse 15. She is more precious than rubies. Here she is, Hera. Okay? She. It's always the feminine principle. God is not a man. Okay? That which we know God is the masculine and feminine aspect of the creative principle of the universe. And there's always that which is spirit and that which is mind and that which is Hera, which is that heart. Now the next child is one you'll remember. You'll notice from a movie. This was the 5th child of, and the name is Poseidon. Water. Truth. No, there's a movie called The Poseidon Adventure. Do you remember that? There's another name for Poseidon. Who could think of it? Neptune. Exactly right. Neptune. That's right. And the child who escaped from all of this insanity, Zeus. The 6th sense. That which lies above the realm of the 5 senses. And Kronos was not able to devour. Now, they're a threat. All of these things are a threat to the system because the physical, which is subjected, okay, to the system, can one day revolt. Oh, the desire mind, which is actually the hellish mind, can all of a sudden no longer desire to get for myself, but now can start desiring to make your life happy. That's a threat to the system.
Hello, guys. David Vose again. Beautiful day here in paradise. Still cold. Man, it was cold last night. You know, I'd always thought winter, since the winter solstice is December 21st, I thought that was the middle of winter. And I could never figure out why winter always came late. Until it always came after December. Usually January and February were the coldest months. Well, it turns out that is when winter starts. Is that, well, you know, it's weird because I guess there's the accumulation of cold. It gets down to the point where the shortest day of the year is the, you would think would be the coldest, but it's accumulating this coldness in the sea and in the snow and then it takes a while to warm up. So I guess the winter actually starts in December, and the coldest day of the year is probably January or the first part of February even. So we've got a couple of months of cold weather, and then it starts warming up. And I'm looking forward to that. And I hope you're having a wonderful day. Well, guys, Bill's at it again, and he is really, you know, I think he was teaching these things 5 to 10 years ago. Now, AI, I had looked it up to see when he started. They said it was 2021, somewhere in that era. So that's only 5 years. But they said it might be he was teaching longer than that, but probably no more than 10 years. Now, that means that he was kind of teaching these things right about the same time I was. I started about 15 years ago, but really getting deep, I think maybe 10 years ago, getting deeper, but the last 5 years have been really getting deep. So Bill and I were kind of simultaneously teaching some of the same things. And, when I first started doing this, I didn't even know about Bill. And he probably never knew about me at all. But I think he's probably, out of all the people online teaching these mysteries, he was probably doing about the best. Him and I have been teaching this, and he's got a lot of really good points and a lot of truth in what he was teaching. And I highly respect Bill. And he's so very clearly right about what he's teaching here today. And I want to expound on what he's saying. I wanted to show you his kind of version of what we're going to be talking about, because it's deep and it's beautiful. So I was inspired today from Bill to talk about this subject. So let me just expound upon what Bill was saying, because he did pretty good at what he was saying there, and he put it together pretty good. I have no real arguments with what he said, but I want to start from where he left off, because this is really important information, guys. So, the wife of Kronos was his sister, the Titaness Rhea. Now, first thing I see there is the similarity, at least there in English, to ray, or a ray of light. But that might not be the meaning. But as we go through this, we're going to see that meanings of words are difficult simply because the real true meaning of the ancient roots of these words, all of them, go back to the actual meaning. Some part of nature, the cosmic powers, like heaven, earth, sky, light, that kind of thing. This is how I explain it. But so those were pictures, right? Standard pictures, and there were so many of them, like tree, mountain, lake, earth, sky, water, air, love. Later on, they added to these. They had children, love and mind, and they were down the road, like logos, right? The expression. Jesus is the logos, the son of deity, and all the fullness of the pleroma dwelleth in him. So logos is the expression of the divine, but the divine is a collection, plural, Elohim, of the fullness, the pleroma of all the cosmic powers. So I believe that the only way to truly understand all these deities, different languages, and to understand, number one, it all goes back to the root story that we find in astrology that was put down by Enoch or Thoth or Hermes or Mercury or Hermes Trismegistus. But this is the story of not only in our Bible, which makes it apparently a group of individuals that were the first born on earth. Somehow or another, there was a man, but he's not just a man, he's a plural man, Adim. And you cut him in half and there's male and female. So one use of the word Adam is mankind. So when it says he made mankind male and female, it might not even necessarily mean there was one man that was androgynous that he cut in half. We talk about it that way. But it could also just mean human beings, males and females, mankind, a group of beings, the head of which presumably would be one of these men and one of these women as mother and father, but Adim came from Adamah, which means Mother Earth. And Mother Earth also had a husband. In Greek, it's Gaia, and we'll see also that you can use the word in the Sumerian ki, gi, and then we find de is also for mother, du, de, and we'll get to that. But all of this goes back to mothers and fathers. Every deity has a father and a mother. You know, every father and a mother has another father and a mother. And this goes all the way back, and in some cultures it goes back to a certain place, and in other cultures it may go back even further. Probably all the way back to Father Time and Mother Matter, Time and Matter, Tiamat. But beyond that, I suppose you've got chaos and darkness and things like this. So it does it end with darkness? We can go back to paradise before darkness, the ultimate light. But it's an unfulfilled light, an unfulfilled being who has the power to know but needs to learn first. But my point with all of that is that if a word, let's say, means earth, and that's what it means, how does it end up meaning stability? Because earth is the epitome of stability, ground, foundational support. So then the word could end up in some culture down the road, because the languages kept splitting. They may have used it for the word support or something like that. But the original word is earth. And if you know the original word, you'll understand how it takes on all these other meanings. Earth can mean stability. It could mean support, firmness. It can also be a place from which all things come from. So that plants and growth and fertility comes from the earth. And if earth is married to something higher and floatier, more invisible, which is what they considered the more powerful, either heaven, air, or even light, knowing, being, then it's like the mind and the images creating the whole person, the thoughts and the thinker. But thoughts and thinker might literally originally be symbols, which has to be in the physical. All the roots, the languages, the words, if they mean something spiritual, they still got to be something that is an image or a letter or a symbol of the spiritual. So air is something physical. We know there are air molecules. It's got power. It blows on your hair and blows your hair. It'll blow a house down. It's very powerful, but it's invisible. But it's still something physical we can talk about. And it being invisible represents something more spiritual. So if I say wind, it also means spirit. And spirit means being or mind. So everything has to start off with a physical idea in the physical reality. Sky, light is something we know of. We don't necessarily think of it as physical, but it's something we can see. So in that sense, it's physical. So from the higher things like light and air all the way to the physical things like earth and water, more fluid could mean more like emotion. But again, these are just words that we've determined mean something, like symbols. But in reality, we're just the visible reality. And that's all there is. The physical reality, the picture we paint, paradise, the cosmic powers, heaven and earth, as they naturally separate light from darkness. This is just the process. They, the cosmic powers, made the universe, and in the cosmic powers, you have the physical manifestations, the earth, and then that what's behind the idea of earth, stability. So we start off with this chronos. Now, today we know that this is one way you can understand the meaning of a word. Look at what it means in English today. That isn't foolproof. But today we have the word chronology. So we say chronos, like a chronograph. Everybody kind of knows that chronos means time. However, chronos is the parallel of Saturn. Saturn means set, the setting of the sun, the opposite side, the going down, the Antichrist, Apollo. So Saturn must have something to do with the word setting, going down. But chronology has to do with time. How could they both have to do, with both setting and time? Because it has to do with a wheel. Paradise was a wheel. The animals in the garden are the astrological zodiac, zoology, animals of astrology, and they're in a circle. And this is why deacons that rule each of the houses are archons. They're in an arc. So it's a circle. And there are 360 degrees. So therefore, time, like Horus, hours, chronology, even Anu, which they can't all mean time, right? Father Anu, could that be annual? Yes, it's come to mean something like annual. It's come to mean something like chronos or father time. But in reality, it might not literally have originally been time, because that's more of an abstract word. It had to be something in nature. You see the sun setting, it was the sun itself in its fierce, angry mode. So it can have connotations of evil. But it's not evil, it's the sun. The sun setting and the sun arising on the horizon is Horus and the hours. So this is how they've come to mean all these crazy different things. But the real meaning of chronos is come to be known by everyone, even the people that probably used the word back in the day, as time, Father Chronos, chronology. We have a lot of words that come from it, and we can certainly tell that it has something to do with time. However, the word, and this is going to what I'm saying, time, which is an abstract word, which some say there is no such thing as time, right? So what is the essence of time? Well, the word chronos means to cut, like a weapon or a knife that cuts. So it separates. Now you know what time is. And to symbolize this cutting or separating, you would use a knife. So the word might mean time, but it doesn't literally mean time. It means a knife to cut. And well, there you go. Does it mean a knife or does it mean to cut? Well, if I see a knife and I say, oh, knife in English, but when I say knife, what do I mean? Oh, something to cut with. So knife means to cut. But in an abstract way, the universe being physical and there's all these parts as a whole, if you're going to start cutting it up or separating each of the pieces so that you can focus and have mental clarity about what things are, you've got to separate things. So it all starts with Kronos having children. Well, now, how did Kronos then come to be Saturn? Set. Well, it's a going down of the separation. Going up would probably be making it unified, but it's separating it. It's going down. It's a symbol of things that start from the top and you separate them in houses as they go around. That's my best understanding of how it would come to mean set. Because the houses are separated houses. We say there are 12 houses, but of course there are various separations. That's just the first 12 separations of the whole. You could start off with 2, male and female, mommy and daddy, and then we go down the line. The firstborn son, Cain and Abel, and then, it keeps splitting. But you have these various markers, which we call numbers, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. These are the way that we understand the separation as it began. And if you do it in a mathematical formula where all the universe can be included, we can divide it equally. We had to go all the way to 360 or 12. And everything can be divided into 12 or 360 or 72, or these numbers all fit. So Chronos is the cutting down around everything, making it smaller, cutting it into pieces, time. Therefore, time is a good way to understand Chronos. But Saturn, which is the Latin word for the same deity, is still pieces of the whole, but not in the sense of time, but in the sense of destruction, of dismantling the unity of the reality. So then we have Rhea, and she's the mother of the gods, but like we said, there's lots of mothers. She's one of the mothers, but she's not the ultimate mother because she's the daughter of Uranus and Gaia. So again, heaven and earth can't be the highest being, because what was before heaven and earth? Well, darkness, right? There was chaos. Somehow or another, before heaven, the highest, and the lowest, which would be kind of the highest way to explain all, right, into duality. Everything, we're going to put everything in a big circle and split it, and what do we got? Up and down. All right. Or going further, understanding up as higher, as not in distance or in location, but in mind, abstract. So it could mean mind and physical thoughts. But what would be higher than heaven and earth? What made heaven and earth? What separated the two? Well, here we've got heaven and earth first, and then time. Because, you see, you can't have time. Time exists once you start separating things. So I would say that the chief deity above heaven and earth would be all the beings, or being itself in its paradisical form. They have to all exist in some kind of a happy paradise. Elohim, the plural. And what is that? The purest form of everything, which is light, right? Above heaven and earth is light, consciousness, and being. And so, no, heaven and earth is not the highest deity, but it would have to be light and darkness. Light and darkness. And you could probably come up with something higher than light and darkness if you wanted to abstract it further and go to being and non-being. Maybe that's as far as you could go, I would say. So after being and non-being, light and darkness, we get to heaven and earth. And from heaven and earth, we then come down to Chronos, that might be the negative side, the going down, the separating, the cutting. And then we get to Chronos and Rhea. So Rhea is, they claim, the deity of motherhood, fertility, generation. Now they claim the etymology has something to do with flow or ease, but neither one of those words are the real root. It's just words that describe something about what Mama is. Her offspring with Kronos was Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, Poseidon, and the sixth one was Zeus. We're going to learn a lot about Zeus, why he's the father of the deities, although he's not even near that position of father. He's got fathers and fathers and fathers above him. But he becomes the master of all the deities. And you'll see that as time goes on, even Zeus's son becomes the master. So you see, a lot of people wonder, is Jesus the divine being? Doesn't he have a father? Doesn't he say his father's greater than him? Well, Jesus may have said that out of humility. But let's face it, every father gets older and hands on the kingdom to their son, and the heir ends up being greater than their father. Look at King David. He was the greatest man, he's this word diva, Indo-European root, which means to shine or light, and the house of David is the same as the house of Ra. But yet his son, Solomon, it talks about the glory of Solomon, and all the world came to see Solomon's glory. If Solomon is Sol, Amun, then he's the soul or the sun itself, and everyone comes to see the glory of the sun. Of course, that's only the part you see. The source of that was the shining light, which is King David, his father. But yet it's still degraded from his father, because he ends up, through his wisdom, he did choose wisely, but then he got led astray with women and riches. So he fell. So the archetype is David, Diva, the shine, the light, Ra. But Rhea means, they start off by telling you it's flow or ease, which those two words don't seem to mean the same thing. Like, they're just guessing. There was a prophecy that Kronos' sons would destroy him, which is true, right? This is like what I'm saying. Jesus may be the son of the Father, but he's the heir. He's taken over. He's the Logos. Now, you can't deal without Logos, even though maybe before Logos, before thoughts and expression, before the plan, the logic, you still have to have being, right? We couldn't live without being. Being is greater than Logos. However, who runs the world? Logic. Who runs the world? Where's the rules of this world come from? Comes from Jesus. Jesus is the divine being, and all the fullness of deity dwelleth in him, and he is the firstborn among many brethren, meaning all of us human beings are the supreme deity. Each and every one of us simultaneously, because you yourself, you're not living in a universe that is physical. You're dividing the world up in your own mind with time, but you are the being within that, within your mind, and so therefore you are the divine being, and you are the son of the divine being, in which all the fullness of deity dwelleth. So you are the supreme deity, one member or spark of the divine or ray from the sun. You are the same essence, one with the Father. And even though your Father is greater than you are the heir and the ruler and indeed the divine being. So Kronos then had these kids, and he starts swallowing them up. Why would a deity swallow his children? Well, because time is swallowing up things. When time starts devouring your peace, because now it's separating yourself from your peace. Time is not bad. We've got to have time, friends, in order to understand, in order to divide the world so that we can clarify each and every point. We can focus on one point or another. If we're just in the all, always in the all, and it's not separated, then we're just this one light and we're not even aware. We may be the all, but we're not aware of being the all. But we finally start being aware when we're smaller, when we can focus. And then that gets us knowledge, and gnosis then takes us back to becoming like our original divine being, but this time in more, only with greater clarity. Like you always were yourself, but you didn't know what you looked like until you looked in the mirror, and that's a reflection of yourself. Not even you, but you're learning from something that's not even you. So Kronos isn't a divine being, but he is a divine power that swallows up. And no other being in the universe can stop him because he's part of the divine being. The devil is part of our divine Father. In other words, the divine, Jesus, had to learn himself. You and I, we had to learn ourselves. We had to go through darkness. Right? We're not begrudging time. Even though time has swallowed up a lot of our precious things, even sometimes our own wife is threatening our own soul. But don't worry, everything has a place, and so does Kronos. Eventually, Kronos is going to have a son named Zeus, and though Kronos swallowed up his children, he will also vomit them out, and one by one they'll come out. And though Kronos swallowed his first child first, of course, Hestia, or Vesta, which is where we get the Vestal Virgin. She's a virgin. Her name means the hearth. And again, that's not the end all. It does seem to mean the hearth. What is the hearth? The fire, the altar. But does it mean altar? No. It's a feminine word. It's the mother. It's a woman. And mamas that have the womb, that nurture, are also in control of the home and the cooking and the nurturing. And so it's more complicated than just saying the hearth. But that may be the physical symbol. But what does a hearth mean? What is the altar, the fire, where everybody gathers around and we're all nourished and fed by the mother? So, can we get to an actual English word that is exactly the right word? No. So, Hestia in Greek is Vesta in the Latin, and this is where we get the Vestal Virgins. They were priests that were to teach humans, along with the whole story, the astrological story, and the mysteries, and the temple. They weren't supposed to be mysteries. They were supposed to be explanations of the mysteries of life. And the first thing was time and why we're here. And then we get down to what it's all about. Well, we've got Mama, the Vestal Virgin, who cooks and nurtures and loves us. And we all gather around Mama and the hearth, and she's feeding us. Now, what about Daddy? Well, he's out hunting, right? Or something of that nature. So we'll get to Vesta, the firstborn child, but she's the first to be devoured by time, or the sickle, or the knife of Kronos, Kron, who is setting the pace. You know, and even the word set, we get the word the sun sets, but maybe there's a deeper meaning to the word setting. Setting also means to set down something specific. This set of rules, right? A set of rules is a group. So again, time is also a group of houses, but it's kind of in the sense of cutting and separating, and a set. There again is proof that we're not going to get an actual word that means exactly what the word set means. Because I could say, oh, look, it means the sun sets. It means the set. But where did that come from? Somebody sitting down in a particular place around the wheel, like Archon and Arc? You know, I mean, how do these words all come down to us? The only way we'll ever know absolute truth is to know the original language and get that vision. We can do that. Even if we don't speak their original language, we don't have to say it. We can see it. It was hieroglyphs. It was telepathy. It's a picture. It's in your Bible. No one's ever defeated it. No one's ever removed it. The original language is there. It's Genesis chapter 1 and 2. It's Isaiah. It's Jeremiah. They all have the picture of paradise. And every prophet, whoever was a prophet, had a vision of paradise, and they were taken to paradise. Enoch was taken to the Father's throne, to paradise. Isaiah was taken. Jeremiah. John the Revelator was taken to paradise, and he saw all the beautiful things. And that vision is understanding. In signs and in symbols, it was given to John. Signs and in symbols, which is the physical world we live in. If you want to know the language, look outside. The mountains, the trees, the sky, the sun, all of that is the reality. Each and everything has an abstract that makes up all wisdom and knowledge on earth. And the reason we're here can be understood from, or extrapolating from, nature and the cosmic powers. So, Hestia Vesta, the hearth, is something that's so important, right? Well, it's taken away. It's swallowed up by time. However, when Kronos' wife, Rhea, which we're going to get to her in a second, when she, the loving mother, has a plan, she gives birth to Zeus, which is something higher. Zeus from the European Deus, meaning diva, divine, David, light, raw. Light itself, which might be a little bit of what Rhea means, Ray, right? They're going to say it means something else. Rhea, Kronos' wife. But she ends up giving birth to Zeus, or the shining, or the brightness, the enlightenment. Not the original light, but the enlightenment after it's been purged from the darkness. Wisdom, you might say. Understanding, knowledge. Mother Eve, she became Sophia. And she being Sophia made also Yahweh, right? The lower ego. And also gave life to humans as we become mortal, to then be swallowed up by time. And then in the end, that the first child that was swallowed, the mother that is over the hearth, the nurturing mama, she's swallowed up by time, but then she's the last one to be regurgitated or vomited out. And finally we have restoration when mama is healed. And it's always, in the end, it's always when mama is healed, the redemption of the woman. So Rhea is, they claim, flow. In the Latin counterpart, it's not Kronos, it's Saturn, and his wife is Ops. O-P-S, Ops. She's always synchronized with the Phrygian mother, Sibyl. There's another one. Remember the Sibylline oracles? Early Christians followed the Sibylline oracles. They were part of Scripture originally. The mystery schools were the original Christians, the Gnostics. So Rhea is also in pictures where you see her art. She's seated on a throne. She's flanked by lions, riding a chariot pulled by the lions. Well, who would that be? Leo is in the sky. And Leo is pulling a chariot that's going across the sky through the houses. But it's on the path down, because Cancer, or Mother's throne, is at the peak, the beehive. We'll get to that, but we're going forward now. From the beginning, the very first mother, was we're going down, we're cutting it up. Kronos is cutting it up into time. And Now we have the ops, or the operation, or the optics of the whole thing. And Leo is in August, which is still in the summer, but it's the vicious Apollo set Saturn Chronos side of the wheel as it begins to cut it in half and burn up the world, and storms and chaos as it begins to cut and separate everything. So whatever Rhea is, she's riding a chariot pulled by Leo, because she's the mama at the top of the astrological wheel, the queen bee, and she's riding the chariot, because we're all riding the chariot. We're all the fool going around the wheel, right? And the deck of cards were popping up somewhere with diamonds. Oh, fortune. Oh, love. Oh, hearts, or war, spades, all kind of evil. But you never know what you're going to get on the wheel of roulette. But mama starts at the top in the father's kingdom, in the mother's kingdom, and all of her children. She's there at the hearth, and she's being swallowed up by Father Time, and she's being pulled downward by the lions as they pull the chariot down towards Virgo, or the Vestal Virgin, which is the first of the daughters that's swallowed up, along with her son, Jesus, because Zeus isn't actually Jesus, but these stories don't match exactly. There are lots of stories that sometimes are slightly related, but not fully related. Like other stories telling the same story, but sometimes the characters overlap. So Rhea, or Rhea, is the Greek R-E-A, Rhea, or R-E-I-A, Rhea. It's debated. Well, some say, which is the most popular theory, that it means to flow or stream. Maybe it does. Maybe it means the flow around the wheel. But there's, like I said, there's more abstract meanings, it's deeper. And so Plato, in that his work Cratylus, derives the name from the Greek Rio, which means to flow, a stream, or discharge, but they think it means the flow of life. Well, I think it's the flow or the stream going along in the channel as it's being diverted and separated by Chronos and swallowed up. The stream of life that's being swallowed up. It could be waters that flow. Well, Mama's always got something to do with Maya or Mame or water. The word, the letter M in Mama is also like the waves of a sea. And it could also be the flow of time as it's separated and going along. Some then say ease or comfort, but that would come from the Greek Rhea, and some say that means comfort. Other people say her name is a metathesis, which is a rearranging of letters, which I don't know if I can go for that. Era, era sounds a little bit like the age or an era. So then we've got pomegranate. Well, I don't think it would be the word for pomegranate. It's just that whatever that word means, they named the pomegranate after it. Maybe the pomegranate was named after the nectar of our mother's flowing life force, the mother life force. So it's hard to tell exactly what that means. Ops, which is the Latin version of Rhea, is plenty or abundance. In the Latin, it means riches, abundance, or resources. Those are a lot of different words that all kind of have the same kind of meaning: plenty, riches, abundance, or resource. But it's rooted in another word, work. They connect it to the Latin word opus, which means work. or working the earth by sowing and planting and then harvest. We're getting kind of far field, different ideas, words that may be related, but I don't know what we're trying to find the root of ops, like operation, in my opinion. Doesn't the word work mean operate or operation? Like you're going to operate on somebody. What means you're going to work on them, right? You're going to open them up. You're going to do your thing. We're going to have an operation to work something out to a conclusion. And the Proto-Indo-European root, hep, or where we get op, means to work, produce, but not just to work and produce, but to produce in an abundance. So there's where you get this word flow. I'm not sure it was originally flow, but just the working that is flowing forward towards the goal, because this is the operation. Then they claim the Sanskrit, apnas, which means property or possession. So we have in English the word opulence, which is great wealth, and optimism, which is at first glance not even related, but if I'm optimistic because I know that I'm doing some work and I'm going to get a reward or opulence or wealth out of my work. All these words are related. Then we have the word copious, which is an abundance again. Why is it abundance and also work? Because you don't get abundance without work. You don't get work without movement or flow. So therefore, operation, abundance is the end of the operation. An operation doesn't just mean to work itself. It means the work to an end, an operation that ends in abundance or the goal. So that's our mama. She's going forth. She's the flow. She's the light. She's the natural operation that ends in the abundance, the beginning of the process of working, because the whole is cut up by time, and the mama is trying to go forward. She's married to the cutter, the separator. She's the mother that's going forth in this process to a conclusion. So Kronos and Rhea, they have these kids. The first one is Hestia or Vesta, the Vestal Virgin. They say it means hearth. What is a hearth? Like an altar where you cook, right? And a lot of people don't realize that even the Jewish law that makes the sacrifice on the altar is not what you think. They didn't really do it to appease some angry deity originally. They did it because they had to eat, and the altar was the hearth. A hearth is around the fireplace. If you'll remember, there are rock or brick fireplaces. Maybe the first thing that hearth did for the house, for the home, it was in the center of the home. Everybody gathered around it. Why? They wanted to keep warm. And who was there cooking on the fire? Mama. And she was making food which nourishes us. So, does it have something to do with cooking? Or does it have something to do with warmth? Or the feminine nurturer? What is this word Vestal really? Well, the Vestal Virgins didn't necessarily do cooking, but they did do some kind of a ritualized process that was kind of like something about sacrifice. They were the only ones that were authorized to create the mola salsa. Isn't that interesting? Kind of like the Mexican women making the salsa and the tortillas, right? Create the mola salsa. It wasn't a tortilla, but it was a toasted grain, like some bread that was, roasted over the fire. It had some salt on it, and I guess they had some kind of a salsa that they dipped it in to eat it. And this was sacred, probably because in early times this was their main source of sustenance. In ancient times, when they went back, even before the city life got there, their heritage, their roots, where they had to survive, and the men had to hunt, and the woman stayed home at the hearth, and she made the bread and salsa. So sacrifice means to slaughter an animal, period. Simple as that. Atonement just means to cover. We're naked in this world. We're trying to survive in this world. The temperatures are cold. We need covering. Not necessarily to cover our sexual part. That's another aspect. It was sacred, the sexual part. Necessarily needed to cover it because it was something that people shouldn't look at. But we had to cover it because it was important. We need to keep it warm. That's the womb. That's the thing that brings forth the babies. So we've gotten the concept today in modern time that nakedness is evil. In the Jewish Bible, it seems like it, nakedness and shame. Well, the shame of nakedness came from when Adam and Eve knew they were naked because they ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. We find out we've got to eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. We've got to be married to Chronos, time. We've got to come into time and space and separate things and swallow up different aspects of ourselves that we might then give birth to the higher self, which is Zeus, we'll talk about, who ends up redeeming the whole thing, and they get spit out. And the last one is Vesta, back to the hearth again. She's restored. So it isn't just about cooking. It's about nurturing and feeding and warmth and the womb and the feminine mother. Now remember, there's another woman that has to do with feeding and stuff, and she's the huntress. But she's a wild woman. She's a hunter. Artemis. Obviously, the Vestal Virgin is Mama, the Virgin Mother, which is Eve. But this is the wild woman. She's out there hunting the beast. She's a wild woman, but it's the same idea as the nurturer, the hearth, the sacrifice, killing the animal, slaughtering it, putting it on the altar. So Artemis, though she's a little bit of a wild woman, she's also the Virgin Mother. Well, she's the counterpart to Hathor. Hathor is the counterpart to Isis. She's got the outspread wings, Mother, the Holy Spirit who spread her wings, was there in the beginning, hovering over the waters like Isis. This is Mother Eve. And remember, Hathor was a cow. Why is she a cow? Well, Daddy's a bull. Mommy's a cow because this is the strength. Cows have this vitality. The first vitality, a feminine cow, is the feminine vitality that is the nurturing power and force that takes care of all the kids and the house and the sustenance. So cows have a symbolic part in describing mom as the vital force of life. But then we have Demeter, the second child, and this is another woman, but we get the word meter. Well, you probably right away think of like distances, meters, millimeters and kilometers and all of that. A meter is a measurement, but it's also something physical. As we're talking about going down, setting, a set. You got a set of things, but you also set your watch to a specific time. So each house is a set degree. So set has come to mean the setting sun, but it's also part of the houses that separate each of the degrees on the circle. But meter is more related to the word mother, matter. Mother and matter, in the Egyptian we've got mat, in the Sumerian we've got Tiamat, and so mat, mother, meter is mother. So here we've got another woman. The first one was Hestia or Vesta, the Vestal Virgin. And then we got this next woman who is mother, but she's the mother. So the Demeter is related to the Greek Gaia, de, or the Sumerian ke, ge. They all got roots back to the same original idea. De, ki, ge means earth. So it's mother earth or matter, mother matter. Da or de comes from the Doric, the Greek, which is an early group that were related to the Etruscans, but that's another whole subject we got to get into one of these days. The Etruscan language was completely separate and completely different from most of the languages, different from Greek. They would have a root word and they would string these suffixes onto it. So like in English, we have words, we have some suffixes, ing, the s to make it plural. The Greeks would have the us or the un or all of that. But they would have these long string of suffixes that would be more like several roots to make one word. And it's different. It's more like Turkish people, but it's not really related to the Doric or the ancient Greeks, except that they're genetically the same people, but evidently there was some ancient language there. And before Latin, the holy priest language was the Etruscan language, which is some kind of an ancient language that nobody knows how to speak. The Latins didn't know any of it, but the priests would learn, like Julius Caesar would have probably learned Etruscan. If you were in the mystery schools, you would have learned the Etruscan language if you were high up in the early Greek Etruscan priesthood. You see, this is a trick that they've done through the ages. They're always giving the peasants some kind of vulgar language that doesn't mean anything. It's mixed up backwards and upside down. Babylon, confusion. But they would use a holy language, and only the priests knew it. And then you were more likely to understand the meaning of the words, and you understand the parable, and you understand that it's talking not about some anthropomorphic being in the sky, but it's cosmic powers. It's true science. And only the elite priests understood what the meaning of the parable was, because they spoke the language. Well, now we speak the language because I'm showing you what it is. But the peasants and the basic Doric Spartans, the Attic Greek, or the common Koine, they didn't know anything about Etruscan. It was a completely different language. But this da or Demeter, so while de or da is the same as ge or earth, earth mother, it's also the word in Doric for barley. Remember, the Virgin Mother was the house of wheat, Bethlehem, the house of bread. So, does it mean bread or the mother who makes the bread? Well, it does have to do with barley or grain. So that would make her the barley mother. But it really means the earth mother, the growth, fertility mother, you see. And all these words have abstract meanings, but they all go back, as we've said, to the original symbol, maybe a grain of wheat growing from the ground or something. So it's kind of like the mother of the house then. So there's a lot of these women that, even in our New Testament, we've got Mary and Martha. And remember, there's this story where Martha complains to Jesus because Mary isn't doing any work. She's not cooking and cleaning, but she's sitting at the foot of Jesus and they're talking about spiritual things. And she's like, why is she in there talking about spiritual things? We got work to do. And Jesus said, Mary has chosen the better things. You've chosen the things that are mundane. We need food, yes. But more importantly, we need spiritual food. So Mary chose the best idea of trying to go towards the real truth or the meaning of these symbols. Yes, we need to eat, but earth will take care of itself. The universe is one divine being. It will all take care of itself. Don't you worry. Satan's not going to kill us all. He's just making us better. So the bringer of growth, she who creates, the Romans called her Ceres. So instead of Demeter, she was Ceres. Well, that's interesting. We get the word cereal. Again, barley, cereal, grain, or create. Now we see the subtlety here. Ceres, create. Not just that it is grain, but what is grain? The abundance, the produce coming from the earth. You ever wonder why we call it produce? When we don't think about it, but it's the produce area over there. Why don't we say the vegetable area or the fruit or the nut area or something? But no, the productive, the produce. This is the ancient word for all of this stuff that grows out of the ground. The growth, the produce. And what is that? It's like creation. And so now we know what it means in Genesis chapter 1. In the beginning, Deity created. If you're going from purely the Hebrew idea, the word create, we don't even really know what create means in the Hebrew. But create comes from the Greek series, which is to grow, to abundantly just produce. And it's a magical thing. It's not from nothing. It appears to be from nothing. A little seed produces a magical large tree. Jesus talked about the little mustard seed that produces a great, magnificent, mighty tree, and all the birds find lodging in its branches and the animals under its protection. So create doesn't mean bring something from nothing. It means there's the source, the spiritual source, the reality, what it really is, the essence that we picture or put it into thoughts and create the idea of what that essence is. Creation is the beginning of all that is, but it is a description of the essence or the magical power of just growing and growth and production and multiplication. So that's what creation is. Ceres, creator, the mother, who is the dynamic life force growing and producing, the cereal, the creator, increase. All these words, cur, which is a Proto-Indo-European root, cur, and that means to grow. So that's probably what that means. And the next kid is Hera. Now again, this is another girl. Cronus is having a lot of young women or daughters, and Hera is a Greek word, Hera, H-R-A, and it might be related to the root eros, meaning hero or protector. So hero in the sense, not as a mighty man, muscle guy that is a warrior, but hero in the sense of a protector, a defender. It also could be related to the Greek hora, which is season or year. Some think this has to do with the word spring or cycles of fertility. Then we've got the word, even today, the word heifer, which goes back to these roots, like a young cow is a heifer. Remember what we said earlier, the strength or vital force or the power of a cow. Hathor was a cow, and therefore we're talking about the feminine strength or vital force of life. But the Latin of that, Hera, was Juno, and Juno is where we get the word June, so it's spring, and it's also where we get the word youth. In Latin, it's juvenis, or youth. That again means vital force, youth. But all these words go back to the root. So they also think that Juno might have some Etruscan connection. There is a Etruscan goddess, which is Uni, and Uni is influenced by the name Juno, or maybe Juno is influenced by the word uni, but could uni be the universe or the vital force of all that is? But then we get down to Hades and Pluto in the Latin. Now, Bill Donahue says that Hades means desire. I'm not really sure where he gets that. I mean, it doesn't mean desire, although it may be related to desire in some way or another. But Hades in Greek is Hades, which meant the unseen one, invisible, sightless, and that is linked to the Proto-Indo-European root Inuid, the all-receiver, the all-embracer. And I guess everybody dies and he receives them. Everyone is received back. So now we're talking about the vital force and mother, and now that which receives everyone back, or the invisible power, is also swallowed up by Kronos. What does that mean? Well, if it's invisible, but it's swallowing or receiving things, it may not be such a good thing, right? It's receiving the living in the realm of the dead, or we're talking about that's a bad thing. So what is it that receives or pulls everything in? Isn't it desire? So it does probably have something like that connotation, desire. Or if we go to the Latin word Pluto, Pluto is the word wealth, wealthy one. Plutos, which meant riches or wealth. So wealth devours our life. We've got mother, we've got the vital force, but as soon as we start producing the idea of greed or wealth, I guess when he says desire, it might be better use the word greed. Greed, which is related to wealth, is what will devour you, and it receives all the good that you've gotten up to that point because you've got greed. So it's related to a dark, negative mental force. If you go to the Cratylus, in Plato's Cratylus, Socrates argues that Hades keeps souls in the underworld, not necessarily by force, but through desire. So this is probably where Bill Donahue gets the idea that it means desire. And that is the strongest bond. So he suggested that desire is far stronger than compulsion. And that's why it holds us all here. It's not compulsion. The devil doesn't force anybody. He deceives you. He creates desire in you, and then you swallow up and receive all that is good because of that negative desire. So Hades is the great benefactor, he said, who binds all the souls with this strong desire. It's a desire for knowledge to be a better person, yes? But instead, because of ignorance, it ends up being used improperly. Desire is not a bad thing. There's no evil. Ignorance isn't a bad thing. Darkness isn't a bad thing. You have to start off with darkness. You overcome the darkness with knowledge. You overcome desire by using it appropriately, knowing that it's okay to desire, but you've got to offset it by wisdom. So Hades was driven by desire for companionship, and then he abducted Persephone. Now we've got the desire for wealth mixed with desire for women. So maybe it is just need or desire. Maybe that is the word for Hades, the force that just sucks everything in that's good, life itself. But eventually, Zeus is born, and he'll deliver what was sucked in there by this desire and received by Hades. And the keys of Hades will be given to Jesus, and he's going to open the door and let the captives go free. Then finally, we've got Poseidon, which is the Greek form of the Latin Neptune. Both of those words go back to Indo-European roots. So the first part of Poseidon is pose, which meant husband or lord. Posis is the Proto-Indo-European root podis, lord or master or husband. So you notice that we call the president the POTUS, right? You're literally saying he's your master. And then the last part is don, Poseidon, or da, the suffix. That means earth, like we said before, da, going back to the Doric Greek. Ge, or the Greek ge, Gaia, it means earth. So he's the master of the earth from the Doric Greek. So it's probably the master of earth. Now, the Neptune is Latin, which means wet, neb, or cloud, or mist, or fog. That's weird. It's not water, but mist. We also get the word nephew from this word, like descendant. The word nephew. You got uncle, you've got nephew. What does nephew mean? It really means a descendant. That's the etymology of the word, descendant. And in Iran, they had a deity as Apham or Nepat, which also meant descendant of the waters. So Nepo could mean descendant. So it's probably Neptune, a descendant, and the Neptune is Nepat, which is descendant of the water. So again, Poseidon is wet, or in Latin, water. So Saturn and Rhea are having all these kids. Rhea doesn't like the fact that he's eating up all of his children. So she's got to do something. So she gives birth to Zeus in a miraculous way. Now, that's Jupiter in Latin, but Zeus is from the Indo-European root diva, which is diva, right? Which means to shine. So this is where we get David, divine, diva, to shine. The house of David, the house of Ra, the ray. Latin, Deus, Dei, Deus, Divus. Greek, Dios. The genitive form of Zeus is Dios. And so then we have the Attic Greek word Theos, which is interesting because in the New Testament, it's all written in Koine Greek. Koine meaning the common Greek. But an ancient version of Greek, not the Doric, but the Attic Greek, which is the Athenian Greek, they use the word Theos. And so it's a different Greek language. It's not the Koine Greek or the language of the common people, but it's the more holy language of the more ancient Attic Greek, which is Theos, but it's still very similar to Dios. So why would the New Testament use the Koine Greek, but where it speaks of deity, it uses the Attic Theos? Because it was a holy word that they didn't want to, like today, they don't want to translate it into another language. I guess they didn't want it to deteriorate. So they kept the original language. Now, I believe they did that because it was sacred, the name of deity. I mean, Hebrews have this tetragrammaton. I believe early Christians, the Holy Textus Receptus, preserved the ancient holy word from the Attic Athenian Greek, which is Theos. And, probably the word Zeus has come down to us from that. But that's the original word for deity according to the apostles and Jesus. But we can see where it came from. It means to shine, to the brightness of the light. Zeus was the light. So Jupiter isn't another word. It's literally taken from the same word, but the Dios then has pater on the end. So we've got the Dios or the Theos with pater on the end. Jew, pater. Father light. Father shining. Father divine one. And that's what Jupiter means. It means Father Zeus. Can you wrap your head around that fact? That Christians not only don't worship the Old Testament deity of vengeance, Yahweh, but we think he's the devil. And not only that, Christians worship Theos, Zeus, Jupiter. It's right there in your Bible. It's written Theos many times right there in your Bible. That is the divine name for our deity. In fact, the word deity, divine, comes from that. Zeus isn't the original father, but he becomes the controller or father of the deities and saves all of his children, his brothers and sisters, from Saturn and restores the kingdom back to Anu, you see. Anu and Gaia, or Uranus and Gaia. But anyway, we're way over an hour, so I'm going to stop it there. And I think we learned quite a bit today on some of these ancient words and the meaning of the Bible. And what is craziest of all, as we've said so many times in other videos we've done, but we're just going to say it now. We just can't be afraid to say it. We worship light. We believe in the New Testament, the apostles, and Jesus, who said that our Father in heaven is Theos, and that is the same as the Z, or sometimes pronounced as the Deus or Zeus, Dia, day, light. That's it. That's the divine heavenly Father, Zeus. I'm going to go ahead and go. I hope you guys have a wonderful evening. You know the Lord loves you all. His grace and his peace will be with you. And we'll see you tomorrow. Have a good one.